We are recording the interview of Marine Corps veteran Matthew Purkey. This interview is being conducted by Jeremy Tack from the Wright State University's Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in the New Media Incubator. It is 2 p.m. on the 13th of July, 2018. Matt, thank you. Let's start off with where and when were you born?
Dayton, Ohio, July 14th, 1982. Grew up in Waynesville, Ohio. Great place to grow up, but I was that kid. I was that kid growing up that I was charismatic enough to have people gravitate towards me, but I was also charismatic enough to talk my way out of trouble.
Okay.
So growing up, that was what I did. In and out of trouble, usually able to talk my way out. Definitely caught up with me later in life, though.
Do you have a specific instance where you talked your way out of trouble?
Yeah, just numerous.
Okay. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
Dale and Becky Purkey, best parents anybody could ever ask for. Dad is a electrician. Grew up, he was one of those strong but silent type with an electrician's grip. So there was never a time in life, still to this day, that I could squeeze his hand and make him crumble. But as soon as he wants to, he can do it to me. Amazing, amazing man. Learned everything I know from him. My mom's one of those people that when you think of Mother Teresa, angelic figures, like that's what I picture as my mom. Like she never raised her voice. She always had a supportive word. Where Dad was kind of the strong and silent type, Mom was the supportive and angelic kind of presence in my life.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have 3 sisters. I have 2 older and 1 younger. Danielle is a teacher in Waynesville. My sister Sarah is blessed enough to stay home with her 3 small children currently, and then my sister Hannah is an Army JAG lawyer, currently stationed at Fort Bragg.
All right. Besides your sister, do you have any other family members, aunts, uncles, grandparents that served in the military?
My grandpa was in the Army.
Okay.
But growing up, I never thought military would be my decision. It was my last option at the time, not my first option growing up.
Did you join right after high school?
I didn't. So that's where the charisma of growing up in a small town, I was able to talk my way out of things. Going to college, it was a different world. I wasn't able to get myself out of things the same way that I was growing up. So basically went to college for all the wrong reasons. You know, I started off at Eastern Kentucky University. I literally went there because it was far enough away from home, but then still close enough to come back if I wanted to or needed to. Had a great time, partied my way out of that college, failed out, came back, went to Wright State. Actually ended up failing out of there also. I mean, it was just, you see a pattern in my life between the ages of 17 and probably 22, 23, where it was just a blur. So I ended up bouncing from bartending job to bartending job, you know, and roommate to roommate, and just, we like to say, trying to find ourselves. I ended up finding myself as a bar manager in West Palm Beach, Florida, where at that time in my life was probably the worst possible occupation. And that is where I had gotten in a lot of trouble after high school, just whether it's fights or drinking or whatever it was, I was in and out of trouble. But usually I was able to either, once again, almost get out of it or take the slap on the wrist. When I was in Florida managing that bar, I had gotten myself into some trouble I couldn't get myself out of. And I saw the angelic mother and the strong and silent type father that I described earlier. I saw the disappointment on their face for the first time. Like, Matthew, you're old enough to know better. Like, this is no longer just a fun out of high school, college party phase. Like, you're messing up. And so luckily at the time we were doing things as a country that I was able to avoid some waivers and get some things expunged to actually join the Marine Corps. And the Marine Corps was actually the better option of two.
Okay.
So take that as you will. But I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea exactly what the Marine Corps was about at that time. All I knew was that it was, one, going to make my parents proud, and two, probably keep me out of jail. So to the recruiter's office I went.
Okay, so tell me about basic training. What was that like?
Man, you know those times in life where you knew you were there, but you don't really remember a lot about it. Like you go to your happy place mentally and you rest there no matter what your body's going through physically, like you're in your happy place. That's what I did. I went Paris Island, and I never wanted to be last, and I never wanted to be first. Like my goal in boot camp, my goal at boot camp was to fly under the radar and get done as soon as possible. But I wasn't because of the lifestyle choices I made prior Marine Corps, I was at the lower end of the physical spectrum. So I worked extremely hard on that. And throughout boot camp, you definitely saw a transition. One of the best and worst experiences of my life. I mean, just being a little older than some of the guys, because I was, almost in my mid-20s, and there was guys there that were 17, 18 years old. I saw myself as having to work twice as hard to accomplish the things that they were still naturally able to do.
Do you have any instructors that stood out to you?
No. Believe it or not, like I see their faces, I can hear their voices. But it's one of those things that it's a mystic creature, is the Marine Corps drill instructor. And I have buddies who are drill instructors now, and I can see them as human beings. But at the time, especially not being familiar with the Marine Corps prior to, I definitely just saw them as mystic creatures. Like they don't really exist; they're just here to do a job.
And what year was it that you joined the Marine Corps?
2006.
Okay. What was it feeling like when you graduated?
Man, so I have sisters that are extremely accomplished, and I was always the fun one of the family, but I always had sisters that were accomplished. And so the first time I walked across the parade deck as a United States Marine, and I looked up and I saw that look in my parents' eyes of, he has found himself. I mean, granted, I was 60 pounds lighter than I was 13 weeks prior. It was a great feeling, and it's one of those things that when they put that Eagle Globe and Anchor in your hand, it's something no one can take away.
So what ended up being your job in the Marine Corps?
Yeah, so it's funny because I had several different jobs. I took my ASVAB. In high school, I had finished third lowest in my class GPA-wise, but second highest in ACT score.
Okay.
That means I was smart, I wasn't applying myself. I was always a good test taker, so that was usually able to bring me to the forefront of a class if need be. And on the ASVAB, I did very well. And once again, I didn't really know the different choices. I ended up being a 34-32, which was a disperser. It was the money man. I was the guy cutting the contracts and doing a lot of the cool things that we were able to do.
Was there technical training in A school for that?
Yeah, it was right there at Camp Lejeune. So we were down there. It was I think it was a 3-month school that we went to. And that was after MCT, so we went from boot camp to MCT, which is Marine Combat Training, where we learned the different weapon systems, landmine detection, just simple things that I probably wouldn't have learned anywhere else. Awesome.
So what was your first assignment then?
Lejeune. So I was at, I went from Paris Island to Camp Lejeune, where I was, like I said, I was, well, I guess if I could back up a little bit into boot camp, it kind of, my first eye-opening experience as a Marine. I was in boot camp, and I had this captain come and pull me out of formation.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was a private. I had no idea what was going on. He pulls me out and he's like, "Purkey, I need to talk to you." Being in boot camp mode, I was like, "Sir, yes, sir, aye, sir, yes, sir." He was like, "Shut your mouth. This is no bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
We need to talk." He was like, "You need to get your shit together."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "I see all these college transcripts. I see all these things you've started in life and you haven't finished any of them."
Mm-hmm.
And I, to this day, do not know what made him pull me out and single me out like that and kind of say, "Now's the time."
Mm-hmm.
But the words that captain was able to tell me, to say to me that day, changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you're supposed to wait typically about 2 years after you get out of boot camp and initial training to start college courses. I was able to start right away, just because my goal initially was to go in and eventually be a Mustang, a previously enlisted guy going to the commission side. And he knew that. He said, "Matthew, we need to get you through some things." So while I was enlisted, I was able to not only finish my bachelor's but also get a master's degree.
Okay, great.
Yeah, fantastic.
So it took that captain to believe in you.
Yeah, he poured into me. I had, like anything in life, like you build an arsenal,
Mm-hmm.
and I had some great leaders that I learned what to do, but I had just as many bad on what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the good ones poured into me in a way that I was able to finish things and do things I never thought possible.
Mm-hmm. So you started those classes when you were at campus?
Yeah, at Lejeune. They have several satellite campuses, and I was able to finish my bachelor's at Campbell University, which is right there in North Carolina.
Okay. And how long were you at Camp Lejeune?
4.5 years. 4.5 years, yeah. So I was there for the entire time. Extended my 4A for a period of time at the end of my enlistment for my last deployment,
Mm-hmm.
which was Haiti post-earthquake 2010.
Okay. So what was your first deployment?
I was several deployments, OIF, OEF, and I was attached to a great group of guys, the 1-9 Charlie Company, the dudes that I was on ship with, on the USS Nassau, which, if people don't know what that is, imagine a floating prison.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it was the oldest commissioned ship in the naval fleet.
Was that on a flat deck?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was awful. I remember, first of all, putting a bunch of Marines in an enclosed space is never a good idea. I mean, we were fighting each other because we were that bored at the time. And we would have weapons training on deck, and we would have PT and things like that. But we as NCOs, man, we started making shit up. Just like, okay, we're going to have a uniform inspection. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, which wouldn't be typical on a deployment. But we definitely wanted to make sure that everybody was in tip-top shape if need be.
So you said you went on a number of deployments?
Yep.
Can you just tell me which ones those are?
Yeah, I was in Iraq, and then a short term in Afghanistan, and then I was with CLB-24, which is Combat Logistics Battalion, on the 2-4 MEU, which is a Marine Expeditionary Unit.
Okay.
And that's really the deployment that I came into contact with my next calling in life, I would say. During that deployment, I had put in my commission package, which that was my goal, was to get my degree and become an officer. At the time, the uniform regulations and the tattoo policies were changing, and at the time they weren't accepting officer candidates with anything below the PT shirt or below the PT shorts, which you can't tell in a suit, but probably 80% tattooed. And I turned to my package, and the last page, like I was top 5% PT on the ranges, everything possible. I had earned my degree. Had been meritoriously promoted 3 times already. And on that last page was a picture of me in PT uniform. I'm pretty sure it was an automatic. So.
Funny you mentioned that. When I got out of the Navy, I got out of the Navy in 2012. I was 2014, I was kind of looking to join back up again. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try the Army Guard. So I made an appointment with an Army Guard recruiter out of Beaver Creek. And as soon as I walked into the recruiter's office and he saw my tattoos, then he's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I can't do anything for you."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "It's cool. I'm just exploring my options." He was way more disappointed than I was, but he said,
"Yeah, man, it's crazy because growing up, or when you think of a Marine, you think someone who's heavily tattooed, who's pretty barrel-chested and deep-voiced, and
it's funny because the Navy and the Marine Corps definitely have the stereotype of being tattoos, and the Navy actually at the time had the strictest tattoo policies. They just never enforce it. They never enforce it upon me. And it's funny, the Army actually loosened that restriction a couple months later, and they called me back, and I was like, sorry, like I had already joined the Air Force at that point, so I missed out. But yeah, I know what you mean with the tattoo policy, and it's funny because even in the Air Force, I walk around in PT gear, and I'm the only one tattooed up.
Yeah.
Everybody else, they squares are in the Air Force, so it's a different culture for sure.
Absolutely.
So Iraq, Afghanistan, you said the CCB-24.
CLB-24.
And then where did you go on that one? Was that?
Yeah, we were. Do you remember when the pirates were a thing?
Yeah.
So we were out in the middle of nowhere, like fighting these random rowboats of dudes with small arms fire.
What year?
It was 2009 into 2010.
Get out.
Yeah.
And that's where you're probably in Djibouti a lot.
Yeah.
Was it CTF 57, 59? Were you part of that? Okay, Combined Task Force. I was in Bahrain for those same years doing the same exact thing.
Yeah, so we were there, man, and that's when the Haitian earthquake happened, and it was actually, we kind of changed course and ended up in Haiti. And at the time, prior to, I was the NCO in charge of the ammo supply point in Djibouti. And
man, we were probably really close to each other a couple of times.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's fascinating.
It's a small military world when you start looking.
Pete and then you.
Yeah.
This is great. All right. Well, that's interesting. So yeah, tell me. So you put in the officer package, didn't work out. What was the feeling after that?
I mean, crushing. You know what I mean? And I had joined the Marine Corps kind of hopeless and lost in life, and then I got direction. I got extremely laser focused on one thing, and that was becoming an officer. When I received that rejection letter, it was, it usually takes quite some time to pick up a sergeant, and I was a sergeant in 2.5 years after coming in, just meritoriously promoted one time after another. So I thought I was a lock. Like I put all my eggs in one basket. And it's funny because I had received my rejection on the same deployment that I was in Haiti, and that's actually where I came into contact with United Way. Okay. At the time, I had no idea what a United Way was. All I knew was that there was individuals on the front line with Marine Corps in the face of human pain. I mean, if you think of Haiti at that time, I mean, it was the epitome. It was, in best case scenarios, looks like what hell would. And here are these civilians with these Live United t-shirts walking around. And I had no idea what they did. I just knew that I appreciated them, and I wanted to be part of what they were doing. So I got out after that deployment.
What year was that?
2012.
Okay.
2011. I had got out and took a job, and it's a funny story because I was a McMap instructor in the Marine Corps, and so I had done some training the week prior to, and it got off active duty on Thursday. Checked into Wright Pat as a financial manager for the LAIRCM program, which is Large Aircraft Infrared Countermeasures. Checked in as a financial manager, and I checked in, and my supervisor, I remember his face to this day. I had a busted lip and a black eye, and he looked at me and he goes, "This is the last Marine we're hiring." So at the time, I was like, well, damn. Ended up, I knew that I wanted to make the jump to nonprofit, but I also knew that I wanted to set my family up financially for the future. And I knew that there would be a pretty drastic pay cut somewhere along the way. So I took this job, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to see where this takes me, but I'm going to volunteer throughout my community. And at the time, I didn't understand why I was doing this financial work, and I hated it. I hate cubicles. I hate staring at the computer screen. Looking back, I learned some of the most important lessons from a business aspect in that job that has helped me in my nonprofit career probably just as much as anything. I mean, whether it's from commitment, obligation, expenditures, or future budgeting, cost estimating, all these things that at the time I was like, man, this is a drag. To I look back, and in the nonprofit community, what you'll find is you never find a lack of purpose, a lack of mission, a lack of passion. What you'll find is a lack of business acumen. So when you're able to find someone with that business acumen and the passion for the mission which you're trying to accomplish, it's a great match. So that job has actually helped me tremendously throughout my nonprofit career.
So how did you end up transitioning to the nonprofit?
Well, United Way of the greater Dayton area, I was watching, something to come open, just anything. I had done everything that I wanted to set my family up, and something came open. It was like a manager of resource development. It was pretty bottom of the rung in the nonprofit community, but I was like, you know what? As long as I get my foot in the door, let's do this. So I started there in 2013 into 2014. 14. And did exactly what I was there to do. I mean, I went from manager to director, director to AVP, AVP to vice president pretty quickly. And then once I felt that, you know, in great experience with United Way, all the while working on my PhD. And I got to a point where I felt like I was becoming stagnant. And we all know complacency kills. And when I felt like I was getting stagnant, I was like, okay, what's next? Started to explore different opportunities throughout the United Way network for presidency positions. I was given 4 offers from 4 very cool communities from throughout the country. My wife Amanda and I visited them and went to a place called Athens, Georgia. Fell in love with it. One of the coolest communities I've ever been to in my entire life. And a great leadership opportunity. I mean, it was an organization that was not dysfunctional, but it was definitely stagnant as an organization. So me as a new president and CEO, I was able to, I don't know if I was necessarily capable at the time to fix dysfunctional, but I could definitely breathe new life into something. So my wife and we had 2 small children at the time. We moved down to Athens, Georgia, and I took the presidency position over a 9-county United Way. I had set my goal at 3 to 5 years, that these were the things I was here to accomplish, whether it be from transition to community chest to community impact. There was a lot of things going on internally at United Way that I said, if I accomplish this, then I'm going to start looking at larger markets. So 3 years in, I had accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish, started looking at the next step, and that's when fate had it we would move back to Dayton, Ohio. And at the time, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew that I was in a position to choose my opportunity, which is a good place to be in at any point. So I set all opportunities in front of me on the table, and this one's too corporate, this one's too political. And I got down to the last one, and it was Ronald McDonald House, Charities of Dayton, which I did, to be honest with you, I had no idea what they did. And I had a preconceived notion that it was a cash cow of McDonald's, and it was fully funded and these things, and that wasn't the case at all. So I guess to rewind a little bit back to United Way, when I was doing all these great things in Athens, there was an opportunity for me to go through a program through United Way Worldwide, which is, there's 2,200 local United Ways in the world. They choose 10 CEOs a year to go through a specialty program. And it's up until this point, you know, I had gotten 40 under 40, I had done a TED Talk, I had done all these things. But I remember they sent me to Harvard Business. They sent me to Harvard Business School to get a nonprofit certificate. And I was that same dude that was like, man, I wasn't even supposed to graduate college, and I'm walking the campus of one of the top universities in the entire world. And it was just that, and the Center for Creative Leadership and Deloitte University. It was just a really cool experience. And all those experiences snowballed into what we are today and where my family is.
Mm-hmm. Great. Tell me a little bit more about Ronald McDonald House and the mission there to the local area.
Absolutely. So Ronald McDonald House here is, we provide community, comfort, and hope to the families of critically ill children, which means, and me with 3 small children, I personally, my personal mission within this organization is I literally get to walk with parents through my worst nightmare. Mm-hmm. I mean, these parents, just the strength and what they're able to go through with a smile on their face. I mean, I literally get to walk with them while they're going through my worst nightmare. You know, my kids have had very minor run-ins with the hospitals, but I just remember the beeping and the smell and the sound of what was going on when my baby was laying there. And I'm able to do that for an extended period of time. So I am very, very passionate about what I do at Ronald McDonald House and the organization as a whole. Very cool. And I think that when I left Dayton to go to Georgia, I was involved in everything. I mean, I was on every board of directors. I was involved in every political movement. I was involved in, when I moved and I came back, I said to myself, all right, Matthew, you can't spread yourself that thin. So I have 2 lived experiences that I'm very passionate about, and that's fatherhood, and that is the Marine Corps and the veterans. Mm-hmm. Because what we don't see as a society sometimes is the actual cost of war. Mm-hmm. As I sit here, and it's funny that this interview is occurring today. Today would have been the 29th birthday of Marine Corporal Rec Rowland, who killed himself 2.5 years ago. His daughter's now 10, so Zoe is celebrating her dad's birthday that she lost 2.5 years ago. And I have 7 buddies that I know personally, not 7 people that I've heard of. I know 7 people by name. I know 7 people's families. I know 7 people's children that their father is no longer here. So I am extremely passionate. And Jeremy, you and I, you know, we have a lot in common, and I feel like in this world there's a burden and blessing bucket. And I feel like those 7 guys that were taken from us too early, I'm responsible for the blessings that they once were put on this earth to accomplish. So I feel an extremely heavy weight that I need to accomplish and the things that I need to do in this world. You know, Staff Sergeant Matt Thompson, you know, I lived with him in North Carolina. I mean, we were roommates. I knew his children, you know, I knew his wife. I knew he's no longer with us, you know, and he has kids that will never know the man that their dad was. And so I feel a very strong calling not only to the father figure in a family dynamic, and how do we empower fathers to do more, and by improving fathers, we improve our families. By improving families, we improve our communities. By improving our communities, we improve our city. I think that it's, you know, data shows that this is an area in which we can all improve in. And, you know, and I'm surrounded by a great group of guys who truly desire to be better dads. And then from the veterans' perspective, there's nothing I enjoy more than watching a veteran find themselves post-service. And it's, I mean, in this last week, I've been in VFWs, I've been in the AMVETs, I've been in the American Legion, I've been to other universities who are doing programs, I've been to, and that's just in the last week, and that's in addition to my job at Ronald McDonald House, because I feel that we have something to bring to this society that is being overlooked. I mean, we're resourceful, we're knowledgeable, we're leaders. I mean, the things that are flowing through our veins sometimes I feel are not being utilized as much as they should be.
lessons learned in the Marine Corps, do you use those, or what was is there things you learned in the Marine Corps that you apply now to your job?
Absolutely.
What specifically is?
Mission accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now, my mission in my day job is literally putting additional resources behind giving comfort and hope to the families of people who are living my worst nightmares. So I put that goal in my crosshairs. And mission accomplishment, as we know from the Marine Corps leadership traits, is number one. I mean, there's nothing that comes above mission accomplishment. So just mission accomplishment, troop welfare. I mean, a leader that takes care of their people are going to take care of the organization. And I think that a lot of the times we look at our own careers as a stepping stone and things to use people as steps to get to where you want to go next. But in fact, it's by pouring into your people pour into you, and that's how progress happens. Not using them as a stepping stone, but instead pouring into them and empowering them to be better themselves, and then the entire organization becomes better.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see yourself in the future? Do you want to continue on with nonprofit work, or?
Yeah. I don't even want to say nonprofit work, but very mission-centered work. Okay. For any nonprofit, our job is to work ourselves out of a job. Mm-hmm. Too often, the fastest growing sector in our community is the nonprofit sector. Mm-hmm. Does anybody else see a problem with that? The fastest growing employment sector is to deal with the problems of our community. Mm-hmm. And we need to stop looking at it as, okay, this is our job and this is what we're going to do for the rest of our life. No, this is a mission that we need to accomplish, work ourselves out of a job, and then move on. Mm-hmm. Because so often it just feels that, my team will tell you, I will send you home for saying it's always been done this way. Mm-hmm. I will send you home by saying, is it Friday yet? Or is it 5 o'clock yet? Because I can tell you this, if accomplishing this mission is not a calling to you and it's just a job, tough times are going to come and you're not going to make it through. Mm-hmm. Because if it's not a calling, if it is not in your DNA to want to better your community and better the lives of those that we're pouring into, eventually you're either going to be looking for something else or you're going to be pushed out. Mm-hmm. Because one thing that we know about, being veterans and moving to the civilian sector, it's very difficult to deal sometimes with the sense of urgency of civilians. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes people see it as, okay, well, we'll accomplish that later, or we'll get to it when we can. No, like the sense of urgency that we need to have behind our missions needs to be propelling us in everything we do. Mm-hmm. So I think that aligning with business acumen is what's going to take the nonprofit sector to the next level.
All right. What message would you like to leave for future generations that might be hearing this?
Future generations? Leave it better than you found it. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that goes for everything. That just doesn't go for, leave the world better than you found it. Leave every situation you're in better than you found it. If you are not leaving a positive imprint on those around you, you are not leaving them better than you found them. If you're not leaving the room that you walked into better than you found it, then the next generation will be cleaning up our messes. And I find it very difficult to think about my kids growing up in a world that's worse off and not better. Mm-hmm. So my mission in life is to leave everything I touch, every situation I come into contact with, better than I found it. And if that is possible, and we all start considering that in everything we do, then I believe that my kids will grow up in a much better world than we currently are in.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, just my heart breaks for the guys who are still chasing that high from the military. Because any veteran, whether deployed, stateside, we all know that there are situations that we come into contact with that will make us, we're scared, we're excited, our blood's pumping, everything's going at the same time. And for the rest of our lives, I feel like we're trying to chase that same high of feeling fully alive. And guys get out, guys and girls, all veterans get out, and we're still searching for that thing that's going to make us feel just as alive. But if we do not have an active plan in getting out of the military, of attaching ourselves to a mission, then that couch is going to be calling our name. That bottle is going to be calling our name. That pill bottle is going to be calling our name. Whatever it is, we're going to find it. We're going to find what we're looking for, but we're either going to find something that fills it negatively or fills it positively. I just dream of a generation of veterans that get out, that use what we are, who we are, what is ingrained in us to better our community the same way that we look to protect this country when called on to.
All right, I like that. Well, that's all I have. Thank you so much for doing this interview.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for your service.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That concludes the interview of Matthew Purkey. Thanks.